everyone should unmute if you're on a computer. Okay. Okay, Daniel, if you're out there, can you hear us? Can you give me a thumbs up or turn on your video so I can know people in the audience are hearing? Yes, great, thank you. All right, I'm sorry, we're starting a few minutes late. I'm going to call this meeting to order at 4:05. So roll call, I know Dee is absent today. MJ, you're here. Nona, you're here. Wanda is here. I am here. Jennifer Hammer. And there is Craig, our wonderful town councilman. Craig Taylor just walked in. Okay. You got that, MJ? All right. So our first item is oral communications for items not on the agenda. And I'm going to start with just an explanation of some agenda changes we've had because some things have changed. So originally we were supposed to have a workshop by the fire district today, and they needed to cancel that. But we will be scheduling the home hardening and defensible space workshop at a later time, and we may discuss that later about what our schedule looks like for the next couple of months. Because we had that time available, I went ahead and moved up the insurance data collection project. So that's going to be on the agenda for today. And then we also had a special meeting scheduled earlier, I think it was supposed to be for this week, that we needed to cancel because we found that the special meeting was supposed to be on the ordinance 2401 guidelines document, and we found that that document would not be available either to put in the agenda or to discuss at the meeting. So we canceled the meeting. I did add an agenda item for the 2401 and supporting document discussion, but that was simply because that ordinance passed last month. And so I wanted to get that ordinance in the agenda packet and then just open it up for any discussion that might come up. But we will not be discussing in detail the guidelines document during that agenda item because we don't have it available for the public. And then, so if we do have the fire district in attendance tonight, we would discuss anything relating to 2401 during that agenda item. Okay. Great. Okay, so I'll remind Kim of that when she comes up. Okay, so does anyone have anything, any communications for items not on the agenda? And I know we do have someone that came from the San Mateo County Agricultural Department. So I think if you just turn on the mic. So, and I do want to remind you, this is not an agenda item. You can speak for like 3 minutes. Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
Perfect. Hi, my name is Jeremy Wagner, Deputy Agricultural Commissioner for the San Mateo County Agriculture Department. I'm just here to get the word out about a new program that the county is offering. It's called the Ag ID program the Ag ID program for livestock. So Ag ID program, it's part of the county's emergency preparedness efforts. The idea behind it is to provide a uniform way of identifying commercial livestock business owners and managers to firefighters, law enforcement personnel, and other emergency responders at a disaster checkpoint. This is based on our experiences from the CZU wildfire. The way that worked, we had a lot of livestock businesses who needed access to their properties to feed and water their livestock. We had a mechanism in place then, but it wasn't perfect. So we created what's effectively it works very similarly to TSA PreCheck. a 4-hour fire safety training is provided by our department. We've got some trainings coming up. And then at the end of that, if you meet the eligibility requirements, you can be issued a photo ID that you can then present to law enforcement personnel at a disaster checkpoint in order to gain access when they say that it's safe to do it. So it's not a free pass behind the fire lines. A lot of counties are calling these ag passes, but like but it still works a lot better when we have a plan in place to provide access to people who need to get in for critical business reasons.
So Greg, I hope I'm not violating Brown Act or any kind of procedure, but it sounds to me like this, we have a very active emergency preparedness committee as well, who just finished a wonderful evacuation study, and which they did a lot of work with all of the horse properties and, calculated how many horse trailers were going to be during the evacuation route. And then they also are involved with that whole CERT program, which is our emergency volunteers. Should he also be talking to EPC, or would he be talking to Kim? This is our new fire marshal, Kim Giuliacci. How do we get him?
Okay, yeah. Right. So this is the very first time that this coming season we're operating the Ag ID to equestrian boarding facilities and horse facilities. Yeah. So we've actually got some trainings coming up. But the next one is next Friday, May 24th, from 8:30 to 3:30 at the Ted Adcock Community Center. I've got some invitations here that I can leave with you. And so, yeah, it would be great. CAL FIRE is going to be there, give the fire safety training, and we actually are set up with live translation services, and you get a free lunch out of it. And if you come with a completed application packet and you meet the eligibility requirements, you can walk out of it with an Ag ID.
Do you want me to send this to the chair of the EPC, or do you want to do it? What's going to be the most? Because they should know, because they would be much more likely to attend than we would,
Right,
because they are so involved with evacuation.
Understood. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Great.
Okay.
Exactly. Okay. Awesome. That sounds
Right.
perfect. I'll give you some business cards and some invitations. And we'll go from there. Awesome. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So I'm not going to get my goats. I keep wanting to get us having animal grazing, and I think that. Well, did you see Menlo Park is getting goats? It was just in the almanac, they're having goats grazed for wildfire, to eat the grasses. And well, but Portola Valley should be doing it. Open space should be doing it more, maybe. Anyways, I'm so sorry. Does anyone else have any oral communication for items not on the agenda? Okay. So thank you. I'm gonna move for approval of the minutes from April 17th. And Wanda, you didn't attend, so who wants to make the motion? MJ made the motion. Okay, Nona seconded.
Approve my own minutes.
But you can make the motion. Well, can I make them? Okay, and then Nona seconded it.
Okay.
And show of hands. Wanda, you can't vote. Okay, approved. That's true. All right. Oh, even when you're not at the meeting? Okay. All right, agenda item 4A, fire marshal updates. And Kim, I made the note that I put the agenda item for ordinance 2401 and supporting documents in just because I wanted to get them in the agenda packet. So if there's any updates for that, let's talk about that under that agenda item. So we can do regular fire marshal updates and questions. Right.
One, did you approve the minutes or you abstained? Did you approve the minutes or you abstained?
No, she did. She did vote to approve the minute.
Okay. Okay.
That's right, it's on. There we go. I think everyone can hear me now. First, I'd like to start by just letting everybody know that I do need to leave by 5:15. My daughter's got awards night tonight, and I coach volleyball and basketball, so I kind of need to be there. But as far as updates go, I wanted to just make sure that everyone was aware of the new N5 sensors that are coming into the district. We partnered with Stanford and Palo Alto and the Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council and a one-year pilot program through the Department of Homeland Security to implement these N5 sensors. They are basically it's an early detection system. And the way it works is it has an AI technology built into the system with multiple sensors that gather information from the environment in order to detect a fire. It is, because of the technology behind it, the way it works, easiest way to explain it, our noses are the sensor. When you walk into a kitchen and someone's cooking chocolate chip cookies, you know what chocolate chip cookies smell like. Or if you go into a kitchen and you smell someone making popcorn, you know what popcorn smells like. And so this works just the same. So it knows the difference between a vegetation fire as opposed to somebody barbecuing hamburgers and hot dogs at the park nearby. So it is able to form that information based on all the advanced technology that it has. Maui Fire has been one of the first to completely implement this system, given what's happened there. And Oakland has already implemented this system. But we have been chosen for this pilot program, one of 8 in the nation, to actually go through this program. We'll be doing the implementation sometime in between, like July-ish is what our goal is, but I'll keep everybody updated once they actually get installed. The way they are installed, the sensors are about yay big. They're not very big. They are powered by a solar panel and a backup battery. It is cloud-based, so it communicates through Wi-Fi, through cell site towers or satellite or through Starlink, depending on what is available. So if one doesn't work, it goes to the other. And we are able to get notified through our phones, our iPads, our computers, and we'll get notification if something is going on for us to be able to send out a resource to verify if there is something actually going on or not. At any time, we can also check the sensors. It gives us humidity, temperature, wind speeds. So it gives us a lot of carbon monoxide levels. It gives us a lot of information just by clicking on each of the sensors. Between the 3 jurisdictions, we're sharing 50 sensors. 25 of them will be on Jasper Ridge, and the other 25 will be shared between us and Palo Alto. Woodside Fire District will have roughly around 15 to 18 of these sensors in our district. And they're pretty well spaced out that even with that number, we're pretty much covering the entire district. They're spaced 1 mile to 2 miles apart. That's how they best perform so that they can triangulate their information and communicate to each other. So that is one of the biggest updates that I have currently going on. Yes.
I have a question. So did you decide, did they ask you where you wanted the sensors, or are they on Jasper Ridge because you think that's the most likely place for a wildfire, or because they work more effectively in a cluster? How was that
Well,
decision made?
so the reason Stanford has the way the program works is you had to purchase 25. And then the other 25 additional sensors, part of the program was Department of Homeland Security was providing that. Stanford paid for their 25 sensors. So the additional 25 is how we're able to utilize to share between the rest of us. So after this 1-year program, if it is something that we're willing, that worked well or we want to move forward with it, we have that option to purchase the number of sensors we would need for our district. As far as placement goes, I have placed them. I worked with a team of people where we did the mapping to see the areas that we would place them. Now that's on a map. It's going to be adjusted once we actually get boots on the ground and we look at where we're actually putting them in. We'll determine on topography and what that environment looks like. They might be a little off by, so many feet from what the map shows to what real life shows. So those will be made depending on once we're out there and actually putting the placements in.
Boy, MJ, that's a tip because I think that's the best thing I've heard all year. And the fact Stanford would buy 25 of those sensors.
Is that the system? Did you buy that from Seth?
From Seth,
Chalet?
yeah. Yep. So Seth he's the liaison and because they are resellers, I guess you could say, for N5 sensors, they're partnered with them. And that's how they're part of our working as a liaison for us. And we've all partnered together for it. Other than that, I really don't have any big updates.
Craig,
So,
have
yes, 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 yes.
Stand up here, since I've got class and across the mic too. Did you use flame mappers to help think about where to locate the sensors? That's one,
Yes.
question one, and the other is operation cost. So are they covered for the first year, and then we would have to, the district would have to decide if we're going to continue, because presumably they're already installed, they're not going to take the sensors back. It's just operation costs going on, or would we actually have to buy the sensors in year two?
So yes, with a little bit of Flame Mappers assistance on placement, but not completely because it really that didn't weigh into placement of the sensors only because of how the distance apart that they're placed. And as far as once they install them, they can take them out. It's not a hard installation to be able for them to take away if we choose not to move forward with purchasing them. The maintenance costs and everything, that's already been paid for, and that's already included in part of this first year of the pilot program. So if we choose to move forward, we would be sharing that maintenance cost between the 3 jurisdictions moving forward if everyone decides to stay in. Of course, there'd be legalities and MOUs, and, there'd be other stuff to go off of that. But for now, for the 1 year pilot program. Exactly. It is. It's a 1 year loan. We're going to see what happens. We'll see how it goes.
Does anyone have any questions for Kim in the committee?
Yeah, Kim, so at the when we did our table a couple weeks ago, you talked about the evacuation plan. Are you still doing that? And did you do that thing in El
Granada?
Yeah.
So I was away for the weekend because it was Mother's Day weekend for when they did the El Granada drill. I heard it went really well and it was successful, but there's another one on June 1st at Palomar Park that I will be there to observe. So it's been nice. I've been working with the Department of Emergency Management just in the planning stages and understanding how to coordinate the whole event, since I am looking to coordinate a similar event for the town of Portola Valley for May of 2025. So it is a big collaboration between the Department of Emergency Management for San Mateo County, CAL FIRE, depending on what other local fire jurisdiction, and then the sheriffs. So because we would be all the key factors within doing an evacuation drill, just as they are. So those are the ones who are organizing. So I'll be able to see how the Palomar Park one works out.
Okay, so right now you're not you're not still sure that it's going to be townwide?
For Palomar Park
No, for.
or for us?
For. Or
I
Portola Valley.
haven't decided. Town-wide is pretty large, so we might have to break it down a little bit into actually using, as we would in real life, evacuating zones.
Mhm.
So still in the planning phases and looking at what that looks like on a larger scale.
Great, thank you.
So no one else has questions but me? Okay, so I have 2 questions. One, it's a silly question. So there was a letter with the town of Portola Valley letterhead, and you signed it along with Howard. And It's about the right-of-way tree and brush trimming on Cervantes.
Sorry, timeout with my signature?
Yes, yes. And what was funny about it is yes, you signed it. And it gets even funnier. It gets funnier. So, okay, well, I have something weirder. So it says that our committee, and they
I'll
called
email
us,
it to you.
they called us the Ad Hoc Committee of Wildfire Preparedness. So that's an old title because we're now no longer ad hoc, but that we met in October and finalized recommendations to the council about these brush trimmings and then submitted those recommendations on December 11th, or they were adopted by the council on December 11th. And I'm getting old, but I don't think I'm that old. I don't remember this. So
We
I
must
think,
be in the same boat.
so some other committee did this and some other fire marshal signed this. It's not a problem. It's just odd.
Well, also, I'd like to have some acknowledgement of what it is that my name is being signed to.
Can she have this?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, I can
So-
send you the email copy.
Well, and you can have this, and so our committee, I agree totally with this project, but our committee has had nothing to do with this.
Well, not the current committee. That was probably the committee before any of us joined.
Well, then they should have said October of 2021
Yeah,
or
yeah.
2019.
Yeah, no, I'm sure this letter is old and was probably written in October of
Looks like they may
2021.
just be reusing the letter over and over as
Okay.
years to come, right?
Yeah.
Not a
That's kind of what
problem.
this looks like, except I've never been here until this is my first year actually being here. So I was never in these letters in the previous years.
Right. Just.
Okay, well, thank you.
So second question, so this is a two-parter, our favorite topic, ordinance 2201 and citations. So this subject of enforcement and citations came up last meeting and actually Craig got me thinking. And so I did a little research and I just want to ask you a question so that I'm really clear. So, we don't have enough residents that I would bother sharing this. So I'm sure you all know, if you go on the fire district website now and you find something called home assessments, you can click on home assessments and they have a beautiful list. They have a wonderful explanation of we're going to start our home assessments and inspections. And they say we're going to go to zone 1 through 4 first. And then if you click on the link, you can see which zone you're in. And it's a wonderful, wonderful page and it's a wonderful map and I commend you for it. So I have a question. So let's say I'm in zone 1 and it's 2 months from now, ordinance 2401 has been in play for 2 months. Inspector comes out and he finds I have a lot of things I have to correct. Some of them are in zone 0 to 5, which is a new with 2401, and some of them I should have known about for many years because they've been in fire ordinance. So 2201, the citation ordinance basically says, okay, so we're going to have a pre-citation notice. Then we'll have a reinspection, and then if you don't respond and correct, we'll start the administrative citation process. And then at some point, if after so many citations, you don't correct the problem, they can go into the next ordinance, 23 something or other, which was abatement. So my question for you is, this is our first real enforcement cycle of 3 years. First time Portola Valley has really had home inspections where you have the tools to compel people to cooperate. I get that notice, inspector says, this is what's wrong. So first of all, is that the pre-citation notice or so I get that list.
So let me explain
Yes.
how it all works. That ordinance is in place because we have to have our legal process if we choose to go that process. With the new defensible space fuel mitigation ordinance, when we go to do your assessment this year, this is your first inspection. It's your initial inspection. There is no enforcement because this is the first one. You have 12 months to comply with the ordinance. Within those 12 months, we can come back and see and just check on progress that you are making some kind of progress and not just not doing anything throughout the year. Because the purpose is to do a little bit at a time. And each of the inspectors will work with that homeowner as far as saying, these are the most, let's focus on these main things right now. And then from there, we'll see where, you'll have your full list, but these are the things we recommend as being the priority items to take care of. And then we can move on as far as, what would be the second, third, fourth things. They will explain all that to the homeowner at that moment. That way the homeowner can plan out their next year. And if needed, more time, send a letter basically to the fire department requesting for a modification and needing more time into that phased compliance, but with some kind of reasoning. I mean, it won't just be just because I want it. It would have to be some kind of reasoning. Maybe I have this amount of work to do, or, because if someone doesn't have a lot, then there's no reason why you can't comply in 12 months if it's minimal. Now, if it's a large job, that's a whole different story, which every homeowner, it'll be unique from one to the other. So once that year has passed, and let's just say hypothetically that person doesn't do anything. And as we're tracking their progress, we're still sending them notices and saying, hey, you haven't been doing any work. You need to start doing something. And now we're at the 12-month point. That's when we can actually issue their initial notice of letting them know, okay, you haven't done anything. And now you have, so the ordinance says you have 10 days, but it doesn't mean 10 days to comply. It's 10 days at least to communicate with us and say, okay, we got someone, they're coming out, in 2 weeks. So as long as there's communication and we know we're finally starting to make that progress, but if they're just kind of, if they're loosely taking it like, well, I don't know, it's like, no, you have 10 days and you need to show us that you will be doing work in those 10 days. So that's when that process would start. We don't necessarily have to go down the citation yet. And, we've never been one to strong arm people. I mean, we're trying to work with you. But if we got pushed to it, yes, you have 10 days to do this. If we don't see any kind of improvement or changes, then we'll start going down the citation process.
So definitely no citation for at least a year.
No,
So
none.
now, your first year, you're going to do zones 1 through 4. Is that also true for zone 5, who might not get inspected for a year? Will they also have a 1 year?
Everybody has 1 year.
Okay. So, and then let's say I get inspected by Joe Smith. Will I be communicating directly to him if my tree guy says I disagree, or what about if I did it this way with the
Yes.
inspector? So
You
so-
can.
So
I mean,
Joe
if
is
you,
going to be kind of in charge of me. He's going to be my new best friend.
exactly, he'll be
Okay.
your guy.
So second question, let's say I'm in zone 11 and I'm not going to get inspected for 2 years, 3 years. And I call for a home assessment, and you come out next week and you say, whoa, you've got a lot of work. When does my 1 year start? Does it start from the time you do my early home assessment, or does it start on year 3 when I would have had them?
It starts on the year where your zone is scheduled to be inspected.
So best advice for homeowners is
Get a jump
get
start.
an assessment early
Yeah.
so that you have, MJ, I mean, I know I hate to ask you to do things. I'd love this in a tip with Kim's approval, because I think this is such great advice for people to understand what this enforcement process is, because that they have the time and that.
And this is to give the time, which is why
Yes.
we really support and push people, get a jump start. Let us come out and do an assessment now, because if you're not till next year or the year after, you're just getting extra time to be able to plan out and budget, whatever your budgetary needs are. or additional resources to get the work done, as well as the biggest challenge that I know we're going to be facing this year is the time that we're going to spend going to people's homes and no one being there. And then we have to go back because no one's there. And we would really love residents to just start scheduling their inspections. It would help us a lot with time management because we're going to go out to properties. People aren't going to be there. We won't be able to do a full assessment of their house. We're going to have to go back. We're going to either have to wait for them to call us, and that's if they do, or we have to keep going back until someone's actually there. So we know this is going to be a big challenge we're going to be facing as opposed to people who would just call and we could just schedule them and get them done.
What do you do if they never call you?
So I have been working with that and looking at our ordinance and working with legal. And technically what we can do is if they don't call us, we can give them a 30-day period of saying, if we don't hear from you, we'll start the citation process, because from what we can see, that's if the house is not in good shape, let's just say. Like if the house is good, it's like, please call us, please call. But if we can see from the outside, like how much needs to be done already, we can already start our assessment from the outside, from the front. We could already have an idea. And if your house is not maintained already from that, I can only imagine what the back looks like. So it can be an enforcement where you're not allowing us, because we do have the right to be there. This is an ordinance. This is now law. So if you're not going to cooperate, then we have to take it down legal measures, which I hope that doesn't happen. I just hope people will just call and schedule their assessment. We don't want to be going down these routes with people. It would just be so much easier to go out and do an assessment. And especially them knowing that you have a year to comply. So it's not like just because we go out and do the assessment now, it's not, your timeline is 12 months from the day we do your assessment.
Any questions from the committee on that?
Do you have like a phrase for the voluntary assessment versus the zone related?
I could send you something. Yeah. Let me think about it. But I mean, if off the top of my head, I would say that it would be a voluntary home assessment, or ahead of their inspection year. You know, that would be an easy way of what I could think of saying, hey, schedule your home assessment before your inspection year and get a jump start on getting work done before it's even your time to be inspected.
I
Yeah,
kind of
you know,
I kind of like pre-inspection, because voluntary inspection
Oh,
implies
pre-inspection's good. Yeah.
that you're getting the real one, but pre-inspection means
Yeah, I
before
like that. That's good.
Pre-inspection versus
inspection.
formal and
Your scheduled
inspection.
inspection.
yeah. You know, Selena's really good at making up names.
She is.
You might want to come up with 2 names that's easy for me to write about.
Yeah,
in the
I'll
tips.
do that. We'll work together and figure something out and send it to
Yeah,
you.
thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Craig,
So Kim State, this is, okay, yeah, I was just gonna say, because I'm just gonna talk across the mic to you again. So one, are any of the inspections for the first year in Portola Valley? That's right, it's all up in like, yeah. So, because I was gonna say, at some point, it's gonna be good to put something out to say, hey, call the department to get your inspection, not the pre-inspection, but the actual inspection. I think we can help, because that's what you want. You'd like to get people to call you. My other question is, do you have enough resources? Like if people like start saying, I want my pre-inspection, it would be kind of bad if all of a sudden you guys were like, oh, but we can't do it. Yeah, okay. So you feel comfortable you've got enough resources. Okay, great. Yeah, thank you.
Kim, if you got, let's say I got a pre-inspection this year and next year I'm due, might you just skip me because or like if I'm not home, might you just say, well, we've already inspected this house, it's fine? I mean, won't that kind of help you with my real inspection if everything was good?
No, because if it's your scheduled year, we want to see what kind of progress has been made, because it's already, the inspection report is a live document. So when we go back and let's say you have done stuff, we can update those things during your due year, if you will, and say, oh, they already took care of that. That just takes that. And when you get your new inspection report, that what was on the first one will have dropped off and you'll be left with all what you have left, not your initial report.
Yeah, Dave, go ahead.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, a comment and a question. First of all, I think that the pre-inspection is great. I might even tone it down more and say an assessment. Because it happens that over the last 2 weeks, we visited and had dinner at several couples or families in Portola Valley they have plenty of means, but they're all kind of freaked out about, they don't really understand how much stuff they're going to have to rip out or not. And it's actually not that much if you actually look at what they have. So encouraging people to just kill and just get an assessment either from the fire district or from one of the fuel mix companies that knows the rules. And just, I don't know, start with chill, because people are panicking over almost nothing in many cases. They don't really have a problem, but they don't know. They hear clear cutting in zone 0 and zone 1 and this landscaping, and they kind of get freaked out. Thanks.
Okay, Daniel?
Hey, I wanted to kind of build off one of the comments that was made earlier. I'm curious if you can describe a little bit what the process would be like if an expert, such as an arborist or structural geotechnical engineer, disagrees with the inspector's requirement and plan. So it's not really about, how soon will this get done, but more like what should be done? What is the most appropriate thing to be done for this individual property? And I just also wanted to highlight a comment that was made in one of the WFPD board meetings, that there are certain times during the year where it would be detrimental to trim the trees and plants. So even if a property owner does intend to fully comply, there could be a long period where it looks like nothing is happening since they're waiting for the right season. So there might be some benefit to, discussing the timeline of when the person intends to comply, so that the inspectors don't waste their time coming out and seeing that nothing has changed just because they're waiting for the right season.
So for question or comment number 1, Daniel, that's very easy. We're not arborists, so we would always go with what the arborist recommends. Plus, we're not requiring anybody to remove any kind of healthy trees. But anything an arborist would recommend, we would always go with that. But the arborist recommendations are never they shouldn't really be in conflict with the ordinance, because the ordinance is specific with dry, dead, basically removal of dry, dead things throughout your property. It's not really the removal of things that are trees that are going to affect, erosion or hillsides or anything like that. We wouldn't have people start removing that kind of stuff. Even if it is Scotch broom, if you have Scotch broom on a hillside and we know it's holding up the hillside, that's going to be something where we want to work with the land use planner or a specialist saying, hey, what can be done here? Because we certainly don't want Scotch broom, but if you take all the Scotch broom out, the whole hill is going to fall. So we would never require any of those things. So definitely working with the arborist, and the district's always happy to work with any professional in that industry. To your second comment, that's also very simple. Fireside is very interactive, and it's easy for homeowners to log in, and let's say a particular thing, like you said, like trimming a tree because of the time of year or what have you, is an easy, we are planning to trim in, let's just say October, given the season and the type of this tree or what. So messages can be sent. The fire district, we have no objection to the timing of anything being done. We want to make sure it's done with the health of the vegetation of that tree, of that plant. As long as you just let us know what's going on. It's just communicating with the fire district. And Fireside is an easy place to do it, because you can put in all those comments and post those comments, and the inspector is able to get notified and know. So it's just a communication thing.
Got it. Can I just quickly follow up?
Sure.
I think my question about the trees related to the arborists is less about the dead and dying trees. It's more about the rules around how much you're supposed to limb up in certain areas, or the spacing requirements you're supposed to have between different trees, or what might be happening with partially or all of a tree within zone 0. So in those scenarios, the trees are totally healthy. Everything is good. They're irrigated if they need to be, et cetera, et cetera. But the guidelines well, I guess the guidelines are still in flux, but the ordinance does have a bunch of stuff about what does need to happen to totally healthy trees. So I just want to make sure that when the guidelines do come out, also that they do address those scenarios, because I feel like there's a lot of
Yes.
discussion that it's really only dead and dying trees, but the ordinance has a lot of stuff about what you need to do to healthy trees.
Correct. And yes, the guidelines will be specific with that, but it's always whether you're removing ladder fuel or you're just, or the, the 5 feet from the side of a structure from a tree, you're limiting, that 5 foot or the 10 feet. It's always according to that tree's health. So that's where, if arborists and specialists, we leave it up to them to say, for them to tell or assist the resident in how to properly thin and prune a tree so it's not endangering that tree. And that's all, and that's perfectly fine. And that's what we would promote. The reminder of this whole ordinance and everything that this ordinance stands to be is the purpose is to reduce that structure ignitability. That's it. It's creating separation from vegetation so that your structure doesn't light on fire and burn down. So if you keep that goal in mind, that is the whole purpose of this whole ordinance, is that structure ignition. And that's where we're looking, and that's why these things are being put in place, is to create some kind of separation. But of course, we always want to make sure that we're still maintaining the health of the trees and any plants around.
Great, thank you.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you. Okay, so any other questions for Kim on updates? Okay, so I'm going to move to agenda item 4B, which is discuss ordinance 2401 and supporting documents. And I put the ordinance 2401 was passed last month. I put it in the agenda. I don't have any target for this agenda. I just wanted to include it in case someone did have questions. I'm expecting that when you have the draft and you're either going to send us the draft of the 2401 guidelines, or you're going to put the draft on the website. And at that time, I'll put it in our agenda packet and we will discuss it. And I'm sure we'll have lots of comments.
Am I able to make any comments to the guidelines right now? Is that okay?
You can say anything you want,
Okay.
but this committee received a blind email with those guidelines in it, and we cannot talk about those. We submitted our comments to Dee, who's the head of the mitigation committee, and she sent our comments to you. We can't discuss the guidelines because the residents don't have a copy of them, but you can say anything you want.
Okay, perfect. So first, I wanted to say thank you to everybody's comments and the I met with conservation earlier this week and they had awesome comments as well. So it'll be great to incorporate this information because it was stuff that is really going to help residents a lot. But I did want to just let everybody know that I have redrafted the guidelines, and because I wanted to make it more, rather than it being, we have normal standards and guidelines that we write all the time on things, but because this is so much more personal to homeowners, I wanted to make it a document that was more personal to homeowners. So one of the things I wanted to feature was on the front page of the standards and guidelines. Right now I have just a general image, but what I would like to do is be able to capture, and this is where I'm going to need resident volunteers for a few things. I would love to take a picture of a home in the district that already kind of is an example of what a defensible space house would look like. Not the whole three, just a front view of this is kind of what we're looking for. And so that was the first thing, because I'd like to picture that on the front cover. Then what I also decided was, rather than just writing all what's required in zone 0, zone 1, it's in there, but it's being pushed to the back of the document, is I wanted to do pictures and images so people could see, visualize in that way, rather than a whole bunch of words, because I feel like the ordinance has enough words already. So to make it simple, so what we did was we separated zone 0. We have an image of zone 0 with diagrams and arrows that would show like the 5 feet, everything that the ordinance says, but now in a picture form. And then we took zone 1 and we did the same thing in zone 2 and did the same thing. There's so many pictographs out on the internet between CAL FIRE, IBHS, Fire Say, everybody's got the zones 0, 1, and 2, but they have it all on one picture. And I felt like that would be, it's too much for a resident to really make heads and tails on it. So instead, we decided to separate each of the zones. Right now, we just have this general kind of picture. My goal would be, I would love to get a house again in the district, so it looks like what we would see here. That would be a zone 0 where I can mark up that picture and show how zone 0 works and the things that should be there, separation that. And then a picture of another home, or if it's the same home, of what zone 1 would look like, and then zone 2. So I'm hoping to get resident volunteers or residents that would be happy to help with that. Somebody had suggested Rob Young, and I did reach out to him, and he would have been more than happy to help, but he's already moved. So my goal, so I do want to go to his house and speak with the realtor, even if there's a new owner of the house, to see if, I've never been to his house, but what I hear is it's a great example. So I wanted to just go and see what his house looked like, to see if it's an example that either the new homeowner or the realtor wouldn't mind the fire district using some of the images for our guideline. In addition to that, I also MJ had suggested moving definitions to the back, which I did. So I did create an appendix pages, and within the appendix pages, one of them is definitions. I also did an appendix page that just has a lot of different types of resources that people can go to, especially linking them to areas where conservation has lists of, you know, what would be smart plants or what people could be planting instead. And they have great lists. So I put those links in there. So I have that as an appendix. And then towards the back, I did keep, and I am summarizing zone 0, 1, and 2 for those people who do want to read, and with examples, but I am keeping the document to doing more pictures than I am the words, and leaving the words for the back for those who want further information or clarification. So that's in my redraft that I'm hoping to have done by the end of this week, so that I can publish it to our website and send out to whoever wants it next week.
And I think you're going to get, as the inspections go on, when questions go on, you're going to realize what you have to add little by little.
Absolutely, yes.
And I hope one of my comments was, make sure you separate what has to happen versus what you would like to have happen.
Yeah, this pretty much is mostly all what has to happen, as opposed to, I really don't have any what I like in here, because I have to keep it very objective.
Well, I will say this, what a lot of hard work you put into that. I mean, it was very evident that a lot of time and a lot of attention went into it. And we're here if you ever want any more input. Okay, questions from the committee on what she just said? Dave, you've got a question.
I do have a quick comment. First, I think that's amazing, and pictures are going to be great, which led me to think, you know, as you do the inspections, I think it would be very visually helpful to start to build a little library of, hey, this works, this is okay, this is not okay. So people can like drill down on, oh, I have a Japanese maple that I irrigate, and it's 10 feet from my house. Is that going to be okay? Or I know that's going to be work and it's going to take time, but if we could do something like that without violating people's privacy, I think that would also be a really good long-term resource. That's my only comment.
I think that's a great idea. We can certainly ask homeowners and see how they feel about that. I have had two, and I'm not going to name names at this point, but have had two separate entities, people, if you will, however you want to call it, volunteering their structures to be able to actually do work to model what defensible space looks like for this ordinance with the zone 0, 1, and 2, which is fantastic. So it's going to be a partnership between these different entities, people that will be able to do that. And it'll be nice because then we showcase that and say, you know, if you want examples, you can go to these locations. And the fire station that we just built eventually will be one of them, because I have to laugh because when I went to it, the landscaping was approved and completed prior to the adoption of the ordinance. So anyway, it's got some work to do as far as zone 0 goes, but we will get that done, because obviously it needs to model what the ordinance says. So anyway, that's going to be in the pipeline.
Great, that's awesome.
Go ahead, Craig.
So are you going to include in the guidelines driveways and road frontage?
Yes, they will be included and with extra verbiage that explains. I had a great conversation with conservation so that the residents understood what that actually meant with the driveways. Because I think the residents think it means take away all their vegetation 10 feet off of, or 5 feet off their driveway. Or if it's an access road, 10 feet off. And that's not what it is. It's just removing anything that's dead, dying. Your vegetation stays as long as it's, irrigated, well-maintained. You don't have any ladder fuels. That's all. And the whole purpose of this is to keep our egress and our ingress routes clear. So if there is a fire burning, that you're not getting trapped and you can't go down your driveway to get out, or two, for resources to be coming in and out off of these access roads, since we don't have a lot. So if you're on a private road shared with, multiple residents, the whole point is to protect that road to get out and for resources to come in. That is the whole purpose between that. It's not to remove all your vegetation. So it's just to maintain it. So there's no fuel that can burn.
So we're going to have the guidelines document within 3 weeks.
Within next week.
Okay, so I'll put that in the agenda. And then we'll all read it and we'll have any comments ready for Kim at the meeting. And then residents can also give comments. Great.
Yep. And this is a living document also. And I know two things, as this goes on, people will have questions and they'll be like, oh, that's a great idea. That should be something. So we know this is going to be an evolving document. I've tried to incorporate what questions I've already had to make sure it was clear in the guidelines, and so that it answers a lot of those questions. But again, my only thing is contact me. If you have questions, contact me and ask me. I'm happy to answer you. If the guidelines aren't enough or you still have questions or uncertainties, just contact me.
And Daniel has a question and I think that's it. Yeah.
Hi. So it sounds like the document is more targeted towards the property owners rather than putting in like a variety of details to ensure consistency between inspectors, inspections, and between properties. I'm wondering if you plan to have the document add more FAQs or like maybe somewhere on the website that would clarify the common scenarios that will happen with multiple properties. We tried to do that a little bit in the document that our committee made after the walking tour in Ladera in January, but we're not an authoritative source. We were just trying to, kind of share what we learned from you and the other inspectors on that tour.
Sorry, can I, just so I understand your question, are you asking if the guidelines going to include information of how inspectors are going to interpret their inspections?
I'm asking if, like for example, it says have fire safe plants, let's say, or that's not what it says. It says you can't have unsafe plants. So is there something saying like, the inspectors will start with this list of plants from the conservation committee and adjust as necessary. So if you homeowner have plants on this list, you're definitely gonna need to remove them. Or if there's this other list of plants that are probably okay, then if you have these plants, they are probably okay if they're maintained. So kind of people know what to expect and they
I
don't
see.
look at their neighbors and say like, well, you let them keep that plant, why can't I keep that plant? Or, something that just says, so like, when people have their landscapers come and do whatever, or if people do it themselves, or they're at the garden center and they're like, this is pretty, can I plant this? Things like that to make sure that there's more of a, a known state of what the end goal will be, because the ordinance is non-specific in certain areas because there's just
Yeah.
such a large universe of what you might encounter. And
Right.
as you start doing the inspections and saying like, oh, a lot of people have whatever this thing is, just say like, hey, this is what the inspectors will be doing, just to make sure everybody knows what's going to happen.
So the inspectors are not going to be looking at the type of plants, because the plant list is recommendations for owners who want to change their landscape to make it more fire smart. All we're looking at are the requirements for the spacing and reducing the fuel loads. I know in some areas it says approved plants. So where it says that, those will be specific in the guidelines as far as what those will be. But I will tell you right now, again, that will be the recommendation. I will tell you, fire inspectors are not going to be going, there's way too many plants. We're not about to go through a whole bunch of training to learn about plants. We have way too much more on our plates than to be worrying. That's something that is going to be up to the owner. If you want to change your plants out or look at something that would make your landscape more fire smart, that's all recommendations and we encourage that. But we're not going to be looking at what species of plants you have. The only thing that's going to be of concern to us will be providing some examples for ground cover that will be allowed in Zone 0. Otherwise, the Zone 0 will stand as what Zone 0 states in the ordinance. And outside of Zone 0, it's pretty much you can plant whatever you have planted. We're not going to make you change anything. We're just going to make sure that you're removing the ladder fuel, that anything that's dead and drying. There's just no way that that a fire department's going to go through a whole bunch of, that's why it's always recommended, hey, have a specialist, arborist, whoever. That's their forte. That is not ours. Ours is there just to verify and to confirm that you're doing what needs to be done in the ordinance. So we're not going to be that detailed.
But Kim, I do see a scenario where in 0 to 5, there's some heavily water-based plants I think you might plant in there. And I could see that list growing as residents say, hey, I found this great water-based plant. And the inspector saying, yeah, I can see that. And I could see that list
I can
growing.
see that. Yeah.
Okay, I think we're going to move on to 4C if there's no other questions, which is discussing the insurance form. So thank you. You're off the hook. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. I appreciate all the help.
For everything.
Thank you.
We so enjoy having you at these meetings. We really appreciate it. Okay, so this agenda item is discuss insurance survey, which I used the old term survey. It's now a form being created by the Finance and Insurance Subcommittee. And I'm going to warn you, for those of weak of heart, this is going to be, I'm going to get in the weeds here because I'd like to get this approved tonight to send it to the town manager tomorrow, especially in light of the fact that it looks like insurance premiums could start to rise as quickly as July based on this this accelerated legislation. Do you need to leave? Or you can, whenever you need to leave. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I took the input from the residents from the last meeting. I sent out a blind email to the committee and I got your comments on the survey and I modified it and it ended up getting modified quite a bit. And I'm going to actually, and so what I did is I decided that I wanted to write a memo and I'm going to get it to the town manager when I sent the form. And I found that the memo ended up explaining what this was better than anything else I could have done. So I'm actually going to start and zip through this memo I wrote to highlight the changes. And please bear with me. I lost a page that I had already. No, we're fine. Okay, so I'm going to share these. Okay, so I'm just going to go through the highlights, which will indicate what has changed since last month. And Wanda's already evaluated this and looked at everything. Okay, so this is, I'm calling this a data collection project, and this is a form because a survey is something that you send out maybe on a regular basis, or you send it out to get a wave of data, and we're not. This is an incident form. People could use this form multiple times a year. So this form is now collecting changes in home insurance, such as home insurance cancellations, premium changes, and coverage changes. Because we may find that as people reducing coverage in order to reduce their policies within the last 3 years. So I bumped it up so that people could report changes even during the last 3 years, because that's really when we started seeing the most insurance changes. They may also provide information on their existing insurance policy. So originally I was just going to have them report if they were happy. But actually I got to thinking, well, maybe you have an existing policy, but you've been told it could get canceled, or your premium is too high and you don't know if you can afford it, or you're not happy with it, or whatever. But I thought that I wanted to broaden this area, and then also on the lack of insurance. And that's part of the input you gave, where you wanted to pull people if they have homeowner insurance, but not fire insurance, or if they have neither. And then I point out that this is not a survey, so that he understands that. I also point out to the town manager that we expect to perform all the form maintenance and data analysis, because we don't want to get the town staff, knee deep in work. I point out that the form was created on my private account, and that, do they want us to put this form on the town account or my account, or do they want us to create a Google account for this committee? But I do say that we have to have access to the source code and the data. We don't want to have this be something where we have to ask Carrie if there's a change in the form, or to supply us data. These items in red, I'm not sure I want to include in the memo, and that's what you're going to tell me right now. So we had this debate last month. We don't currently collect email, and we don't collect the street address. We did discuss having a map where people could indicate their general area that they live, and we decided not to do that. Do we want to ask the town manager if he wants to do any of these things? Any comments? What do you think?
I guess it might serve some purpose to have more granular information on where policies are being canceled, or
Yeah.
rate increases are being applied. I guess that's more a question for who's going to analyze the results and what the town wants to use it for.
Well, he said he would give it to the town council and possibly a state official. I don't know. We have to analyze the results. The town can't. And I'm going to get into the data analysis. It's going to be time consuming.
Yeah,
Um,
so, but
Is
But
he
does that
comfortable in
mean-
doing it?
are you planning to do it?
Yes,
or-
I'm planning to do
Yeah.
it. So we should ask him if he wants us to collect more, which implies, is he comfortable with me doing it?
Yeah, I think the more information and data is always good.
Okay.
More data is good.
So now we get into, another question about Google Forms. And I'm going to show you the problem, not the problem, the challenge. Let us call it a challenge. So I'm going to share. I've learned more about Google Forms than I ever wanted to know. Okay. So Google Forms generates these great little charts and graphs. And they generate them automatically. You have no choice which questions you generate the charts on, and you don't have any choice what kind of graph or chart it generates, and you can't pick the colors. I know, MJ, you wanted me to pick a color, and I can't. But what's worse, so Craig asked me about this last month. He said, well, gee, can you edit incorrect information. So let's say somebody types in, instead of typing in the street Ohlone, they type in online by mistake. And you can just see the mistake right there. It says online, which is a street. It's an incorrect street name. Can you edit the data? And I said, of course I can. And I was half right and half wrong. So the data that that Google Forms uses to generate these automatically is implanted in their database, and I can't get to that database. I could delete the entire record. I could delete this resident's response. So not only am I deleting Ohlone, I'm deleting that entire survey response. Or I can go to Sheets and I can view the data. It exports it into something like Excel, and I can cut and paste, and I put this in Excel, which I've already done, and I can generate my own wonderful graphs and charts and do whatever I want, and I can modify the data, of course. But the automatic charts that are generated, you kind of get what they give you. So right now, we have the option set where when you take the survey, you see the automatically generated graphs and charts. And you see all the responses. And in some cases, they look really nice. But then you get something very ugly like this. And then I also worry about, we could get some really rude comments because we're talking about insurance, and those rude comments would show up automatically, and it might be a few days, because all the line responses end up there. So my question to you is, maybe we don't even ask the town manager about this. I don't think we should be showing the residents the automatically generated graphs. I think we should put them in our agenda packet once a month. And that way we can choose. It's easy. You can see, you can copy whatever chart you like, and then I can just clean it up. If I've already created a much nicer bar chart than this with the street names. And that would solve the problem, and I could delete the paragraph, and I don't have to ask the town manager.
You're
Comments?
asking for input?
Yes, I want to know what you think I should do.
Yeah, well, as you may recall, I told you, from a scientific perspective, I would never show the participants the survey results while they're taking the survey, or because then they could go back in and take another survey. So we just don't do that. You're
It was your
biasing.
suggestion that we do that last month.
What?
You suggested that you wanted people to see the charts right away.
No, I didn't.
Oh, didn't you?
No,
Oh,
I
okay.
said you shouldn't show them on the
Okay.
chart.
Well, then let's
because you're
just delete
biasing
this.
the results.
Then let's just
Uh,
eat it.
But also the charts in Google Forms are unintelligible because you have such a chain of if this, then that type of stuff. So the charts don't really make that much sense. And yeah, I'm fine with you just
Okay.
doing a monthly report. That's
No,
perfect.
you agree?
I think the only question is if someone enters an error and you want to go in and correct it, how will you know if you're really correcting it or not?
It would have to be it would have
would
to
have
be,
to be
instead of
really
West Ridge, it
obvious.
would be
Right.
West Ridge without a D.
Yeah,
I'm not going to go and modify the
Mm.
date.
yeah. So I think one thing that can be helpful is if someone fills out a survey, to just say, this is what you told us, right? And do you want to make any changes? So if they have the street misspelled, and in most cases, probably you can tell what they really meant. But if they also see the output of their own survey, of their own entry, they might say, oh, whoops, I misspelled it.
I don't think once you submit the form, you can correct it because
You
can-
can't correct it, but Google Forms has the option you could set it up to send the person a
Yeah.
copy of what they entered.
But if you do that, you have to capture emails
Yeah, you'd have to have.
and we're not capturing
Or
emails.
you could have the output before they do a submit, right? And say,
No, they don't give you that option.
Yeah, Google Forms doesn't do.
No, it's very narrow. And what's more, if we capture emails, they're going to require you to have a Google email. You can't do this with an Apple email.
yeah,
You
and
have
I'm not
to-
saying that they would email
Yeah.
it back to you, but just that it's too bad if there's not a function to say, this is the series of
Mm.
answers that you
Yeah.
provided. before
Let's
it's
just
actually
to keep it
submitted.
simple and let's not include the charts and that every month it'll be easy to just create a pattern of charts that we look at and let's see what data is significant.
Mm.
If we
You
get
know-
enough data to be significant.
Well, after you finish that discussion, I have a different question for you.
Go ahead. I mean, is it,
Oh, well, so, Patty Dews led that survey on the ADUs.
Mhm.
And did they use Google Forms? I think I took the survey, but I don't remember what it was in, but
think it was,
it was.
or
in
no,
Google?
or was it Survey Monkey or something?
Was it Survey Monkey? Because I'm just wondering if, if it would have been, or if you talked to her or tried to leverage what
Eh.
her group did.
No, and honestly, this, I piggybacked on what I did 2 years ago with
Yeah.
the other, with the original survey. And if the town doesn't want us to use Google Survey and she's got another software program to use, then I'm fine with that too.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying you might want to just, of course, that was under a different town manager vibe, but you could ask her what she did.
Honestly, I think that's why I want to get this out to Sharif and see what he says.
Mm.
And, they may come back and say, oh, no, we want to do the survey ourselves, or we want you to use a different software program or whatever. But I don't know if I'm going to be willing to learn a whole nother application. I mean, this works pretty well. I mean, it's good enough for what we're doing. The real I don't know. I didn't also want to use all the free software has significant limitations. And I think SQL, the Google Forms, I keep wanting to say SQL Forms. I think at least Google Forms is somewhat secure.
Yeah, no, I use Google Forms. I mean,
Yeah.
it's great for real simple stuff, but you pushed it pretty far. That's why I'm asking this question.
Yeah, but to be fair, it hasn't blown up.
Well, you haven't
it's-
gotten real data yet.
I got a beta tester involved and I've had actually 3 beta testers involved and I pushed it quite a bit. This is like the data I collected is like my 6th version. And so there's been probably about 150 entries. And so, and I was a programmer, so it's pretty simple if you follow the logic, but it's a pretty nice little program. Anyways, okay, so going on, and then I also said we're planning to create an Excel spreadsheet so that we can get a little more sophisticated charts and graphs. Nona had a really good suggestion. She sent me the CDI reports with some of their graphs and said it would be great to correlate, apples to apples. And so I already did some test graphs and we can do it. This is an example of one of their graphs where they track for our zip code 94028 over from 2015 to 2021, cancellations by insured and then cancellations by insurer. But of course, they haven't updated this since 2021. So we could take our data if we get enough data to be significant and we could create that same graph. But we're going to have to combine some columns and do that, but we can do that. And then I simply point out to him that a lot of the answers are text and it's long paragraphs and it's the only way to get significant information because this is such a complex issue. And so I'm just going to have to go and figure out how we want to make this meaningful in some way. And then last, Craig had, Councilman Taylor recommended that we implement something that addresses the post-housing element implementation question. So that question is, they want the council to understand and gather information on housing challenges in town, focusing in particular on how additional housing units to be built in the course of implementing our housing element will impact existing insurance programs, resident use, and the availability and cost of insuring new housing units. So I did some initial searches. I couldn't find any reports of high density housing impacting insurance. So in other words, I don't know what I'm looking for. So I'm casting a huge net. So what I did, and if you have any better suggestions, I'd love them. When a resident reports a new policy, a cancellation, or a change in premium, I ask them if they or an adjacent neighbor have an ADU or a duplex. And I also ask them if they live near some type of high density housing. So I suppose if we see a lot of new policies with people with ADUs, I guess it's not you're able to get insurance. If you see a lot of premium increases and they report that it's not coverage change, they have it, but they just had an increase and it wasn't to do with the ADU, that's enforcing the negative. This doesn't impact it. And if they are seeing increases, the insurance company should probably say it's because your neighbor has a duplex or something. I mean, I don't know how else to determine. I would think we'd be able to see some kind of, if we know how many ADUs there are in the town and we kind of have that number and we start to see, gee, all the people that are canceled have something to do with some kind of high density, then maybe we do a follow-up survey. But if we see nothing statistically relevant, then it's less likely. And then I also basically just ask them if their insurance company provided any reason for the change in the insurance coverage. I don't know how else to, and you're going to see this when I take you through the survey. And then the implementation phase, I'm asking Sharif that I'd like to send this out in July if you think it's ready. Basically because of Newsom's announcement a couple days ago. And I told them that they need to give us the input and approve the form by June 18th so that I can have it for our June meeting to give a final review during the committee and have residents really look at it. I would like to get a couple of beta testers. So if anyone here wants to be, maybe one of our attendees, maybe Dave or Daniel wants to be a beta tester. I've already had at least 3 beta testers. I would think Carrie would generate some kind of dynamic QR code so we could get it out there, maybe place it on the website. We do have the budget for a mailer if we wanted to do a mailer. I figured we'd have a tip that went out for it. We put an article in the newsletter, posted in the forum. I think we should do the community emails that we did for the Wildfire Fair, and then request all the town committees to have the information in their meetings. And, you know, we would just kind of keep pounding this for like 6 months. So I am going to get to your questions, guys, is people out there, Daniel, but I want to do the survey first. So let me do the survey. I'll just try to make this really, I know this is boring as dirt. Okay. So, is this okay? I mean, do you guys want me to do this? You want to see it, right? I'm not getting too much in the weeds, right?
So I took the survey again several
You did,
times.
you
and,
did it.
So I think it's looking great. I think the question of how to capture information about ADUs is complicated. But I don't know if we can sort of figure out ahead of time what's exactly going to work.
MJ?
Yeah, I would agree with Nona.
The one problem I had taking it is, I think at one point you say we want 3 years of data, but then you ask people to report changes since April of 2020. So that's 4 years, not 3 years. And then you say it's going to continue for a year, but then it'll be 5 years since April of 2020.
Did
So
I not update that? I may have, you know what, I
I
may have
think
not
that-
updated that.
Okay,
Okay, check dates.
that was the only thing where I thought, oh, well,
Okay.
should I not enter it if it's in 2020 because it's more than 3 years ago, but then it's a required answer.
I also added this little thing about Google because one of my beta testers tried to get on and she had already been logged into her Google account. So when you're logged into your Google account and try to take this survey, your ID appears there. And she thought, oh, they're going to capture my email. And she got frustrated because she wanted to use a different email and it wouldn't let her change to a non-Google email. But if you, yeah, even though we're not capturing emails, you still see it. Like, do you see? I'm logged in and you see it. If I log out of Google, this will be blank. And it confuses people. So I said, if you are logged into Google, your account name will be displayed and you will have the option to save your progress during data entry. Do not try to enter a non-Google email. You do not need to specify an email of choice since we do not capture any emails. If you sign out of your Google account before you start the form, your user ID will not be displayed and you will not be able to save your progress. I don't know. And then you guys, you saw the calculations we did for the increase and the decrease of the premium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I looked at that yesterday, I guess, and I put a comment in my survey. I guess you didn't see it,
I
but
didn't. look
but
at
that
the
whole
date.
calculation about the percentage thing, because you can't format it in Google Forms.
Right.
I thought it was impossible to understand without better formatting. I don't know. I don't think you need to show them a formula. I mean, if they can't tell you what their percent
I mean,
increase is, they shouldn't be filling out this
That's
form.
what Wanda said, who was a CPA. And then I said, well, no, I'm going to do this anyways, because Dave Cardinal was so adamant about it. And then I tried to create the formula. And then I realized, wow, yeah, maybe we do need to add the formula because I didn't get it right the first time. And we need the formula. We do need the formula. We do.
Well, you're only asking people if they have like a 10 or 30 or 50. What are your choices?
We need the formula. We need the formula. Trust me, we need the formula. If my mother was filling out this, she would need the formula. I mean, I would be able to get by because I would know approximate and I would know that I was off by a digit, but we do need a formula.
I'm just thinking if you make it look complex, people will stop right there and not complete the survey. That's all I'm thinking from a usability.
But if
viewpoint.
we don't give them a formula, they'll say, I can't calculate this.
Well,
I'll do it if you guys tell me to take out the formula, I'll do it.
I don't have strong feelings about that.
Yeah,
I don't know how other people will react to it, so.
Well, Wanda didn't think we needed it.
well, so that's 2 out of.
I mean, it seems
Out
like
of
you
3.
can do an approximation, 10, 20, 30%, right?
Yeah, I would
Okay.
think so, but
Okay,
I don't feel strongly about it.
Mm.
okay, delete formula, I like it, okay. All right. So you don't want me to go through any of the examples?
Well, not for us because we've done it
Okay.
multiple times.
Um, okay, so for the residents, well, then what I'll do is, just for the residents, I'll just tell you that the big changes were, we added, whether or not it's your first, second, or third, more than third time filling out the form. So we might be able to get a count of how many households. And then we added, basically, I have home insurance that does not include fire insurance, or I have no home insurance, or I have a new home insurance policy. So other than that, we only, everything else I covered in the memo. So so Dave, I'm gonna ask for your input. You may defend your suggestion of the formula if you choose to.
Well, all I'll say is every restaurant prints out a little receipt saying, if you want to tip 10% or 20% or 50%, here's the number. So I'm okay with it. I can do math. It's just, if people are okay, happy with it, I just hear a lot of, like, is the percent increase, or is the percent of the old one, or I, I'm indifferent at some level, not indifferent, but I'm fine either way. I mean, these people are Portola Valley homeowners, so you'd think they have a, some mathematical background, I suppose. So,
Well, this was the formula, Dave. So it did
Yep.
look pretty complex, but we did add it.
yeah, I think you could just say divide your new premium by your old premium or something in a way, like, or so, maybe we don't have to give.
If we do a formula, it's going to be this one because the CPA approved this. If you don't want a formula, I'll delete it, but this is CPA
Oh,
approved
yeah,
formula.
that I wouldn't, that's just going to confuse people.
Okay.
The whole 0.167 times 100. No, I'm not down with that. If I can't calculate my restaurant tip without like a decimal point, then we've got an issue. So I'm fine with deleting it.
Okay, and then do you have any other comments?
I do. First of all, I think it looks really good. I would, and I think I might have said this before, the the town staff, and Craig can correct me if he thinks I'm nuts, is going to be a black hole for indefinitely, because this is like number, I mean, they have a ton of priorities. They're not going to have the staff time to do much. So they might bless it, but if they say they want to do it, then they're nuts. I mean, that's not, if you want to get it done, you're going to have to do it. And I want to say you've got two really smart people at least working on it. But if I can help in any way, I'm happy to beta test. And I do
Oh,
way
great.
too much. I do way too much data hacking. So, and I've used way too many web tools and all that. So if I can be of assistance, but I think it's got to come from the committee. It's not, the, I mean, there's plenty of other issues at the town. So that would be my other thought.
Yes, I will be
so-
contacting you, and I will say when Sharif sent the initial email, he was very excited about the fact we were doing it, and I don't anticipate the town wanting to do this at all.
Yeah, it's not, in a perfect world, if you had 20 people and everything else was going fine, you might think, oh, that's pretty cool. We could take that on the planning department, but that's not where we're going to be anytime for years. I also think, as far as showing people the results automatically, I think if you can just take them to a link that shows maybe the most recent set of Excel charts you've done, maybe you publish those whenever, maybe every month or maybe every 2 weeks, or I don't know, whenever people feel the urge. I think that would be perfectly fine. I don't think they need to see, it's not like a Twitter poll where we're all trying to pick the driver of the day or whatever. So I think just it'd be good for them to get some feedback, but it could just be your, whatever the last web page was from whenever you did the work, I think.
So I could add to the last questions, if you would like to see the results, check the minutes of the wildfire preparedness.
Background.
Oh, I wouldn't, why not? I mean, can't we just put them on the web, which is full of
No, you
everything?
can't. No, you can't, because the thing is, I'd have to send them to the staff to get uploaded. I went through this with the Wildfire Preparedness Fair, and in order to get them on the town website, we're not allowed to have our own website. So in order to
Oh.
get them on the town website, I'd have to send them to her and she'd have to upload it.
Ah.
And I mean, they're willing to do it, but
Yeah, that's not, yeah, I get it. Okay, I thought you could just
Mhm.
put them on a web page and call it a day, but I guess
no, we're
not.
not allowed to have our own website.
Bummer.
Anything else?
No, I think it's
Okay, I
great.
will contact you about beta testing. Daniel?
Hey, I just wanted to just comment on a few of the technical things that you guys were describing, since we attempted to do a similar but much smaller version of this in Ladera, and just give you a little bit of the info on how some of those technical things went for us. So one of the things was, can you allow editing without collecting emails? You actually can do that, but the respondents will need to bookmark the URL for their response, which people won't do. We had this issue and people tried to update, but then they accidentally just added a totally new entry. So that can get a little bit messy. It is technically possible, but it doesn't work super well. The next one was comments that if you wanted to send emails of people's responses, it has to be a Google account. I don't think that's actually true. I think it can be any email, but then you do end up collecting people's emails and you'll have those emails in your spreadsheet. So if you're purposely avoiding having identifying information, that's what will make you not able to send people their response, which will then make it much easier for them to edit them. Verifying with the Google account sign-in is more a layer you can add if you want to restrict to one response per email, but you
Yes.
explicitly don't want that, so you don't need that.
So I wonder if you turn on the option of collecting emails, if there is a line that you can enter then, or having them email their response to the user if if it comes up that you get to enter the email you want.
Yeah, you can enter any email you want, and
Okay.
the form will attempt to send your response there. You can either have it be automatically everybody gets their response, or if you want a response, there's like a checkbox at the end. As the editor of the form, you get to pick which version you want. But with something like that, since you're looking for people to give their historical data, I think it could get pretty confusing when people are adding updates as changes happen to their policies, so that you don't accidentally overcount some of those historical details if there's no identifier that would track that given parcel over time. So if you're not asking people for their address, if you're not asking for an email or some other thing that is uniquely identifiable, even if it's hard to decipher, it can get pretty tricky to disambiguate some of that old data.
Well, that's why we were hoping if they say, I filled out the form once, twice, or more than 3 times, we could get an approximate household count. My concern is honestly, if I'm entering information about my homeowner insurance, I'm thinking, I'm not going to enter my address, because if I go to sell my house and this data becomes public and people know that I got my insurance canceled because I'm in a, high fire risk area, it could hurt, my home price. So I want people to have, to be able to be anonymous.
Yeah, I think it's important to have anonymity. In our survey, we didn't ask for people's
Yeah.
emails unless they chose to provide them, which would be like if they wanted us to have the option to follow up. Even doing that maybe is a questionable thing to do. Perhaps it's better to just not collect it at all. I guess let me rephrase that. We didn't actually ask for their email addresses. We had do you want to share anything else with us
Yes.
field where just people could write whatever they wanted. And it said, since we're not asking for your email, if you want us to follow up, give us some way to contact you. But we didn't explicitly ask for it in any way. And then, yeah, you probably don't want to be collecting this data because, yeah, it could accidentally become public or there's rules on personally identifiable information. It's probably better not collect it.
Yeah.
And then one last quick thing, when you're setting up the survey, the choice of radio buttons versus multiple choice, just from what you're showing on the screen, some of them might be backwards. So for example, what's on the screen right now, you could pick all of those, which probably doesn't make sense. You probably want that to be an only one radio button
Can I?
for the premium increases.
Oh,
Whereas one of the
wow.
ones,
Thank you, Daniel.
yeah,
Would you
you're
like a
welcome.
job?
Maybe. One of the earlier screens, you had radio buttons for something, which was, I think it was something like, why are you doing this form? And there were, things like, I lost my insurance, I got a new insurance, something like that. And that one
Mhm.
you might want to be multiple choice instead of only one choice.
Good catch, Daniel. I didn't catch that.
That one at the bottom there. Like what kind of change? Like if somebody doesn't do the survey every single time,
So now this was,
they might want to say like, I had my home insurance canceled and I got a new policy.
well, they can't. They have to choose. Because if you got your home canceled, um, yes, that's true. And so I should probably say this would include if you got your home insurance canceled and you have a new policy, or you got mitigation.
I mean, I think those are all, they're like, in the heat of the moment when people are like, oh no, I lost my insurance or I'm about to lose my insurance, filling out this form might not be their top priority, or they might not be aware of it. So, they might come back and report to you like, I got a cancellation letter and I also tried to do some mitigation, but I still ended up needing a new policy.
It's grown, this, what we want to collect has grown. And so it's hard. So really, number one should be home insurance cancellation. This includes receiving if you've been canceled and you have already obtained a new policy, or if you've been canceled and you have avoided cancellation by mitigation.
I think you probably want those separate, don't you? Because that's pretty good information to let people know that like, hey, there is a possibility of saving it, or
Well, no, this
basically
covers
it's-
it, because if you do this and you say home insurance cancellation, it's going to ask you,
it's a later question.
did you, were you offered a chance to mitigate? Did you mitigate? If so, did you avoid cancellation? If not, have you gotten a new policy? And if you say no, you were not given any chance to mitigate, it says, well, do you have a new policy? So this is already baked in.
Okay, you already got it. Got it.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
I will send this to you to beta test.
Hey, Daniel, when you said you did something similar, was it also about insurance or it was something else for Ladera?
What we did was we were looking for specifically wildfire risk scores from homeowners insurance. So we did this. Let's see. Oh, somebody actually filled it out recently. We did it in January of this year. And that was like, as part of the defensible space stuff for the fire department, they were making statements saying, their insurance companies are assigning you risk scores and they're deciding policies based on all this stuff. So we were just trying to get some information like, hey, is what the fire marshal is saying actually what we are so far experiencing? So we weren't looking for any level of detail like you have here. And I think the survey is great, but it's not what we did. We looked for what wildfire risk scores or adjustments homes received, and then what was the range for that individual insurer. So like, since I think there was a law saying that if they do the wildfire adjustments, they have to tell you how high or how low it could be. Then we asked what was the insurance company if they wanted to fill it out. And then we asked if there is a wildfire mitigation discount. So like, for example, if you're Firewise or something like that, and then was that discount for community-based or for property-based? And what was it if they had it? And then what we learned from this form was that instead of discounts, some insurers did discounts and some insurers did extra premiums, or premiums the wrong word. So some additional multiplier if you're in a risky area. And that's kind of the extent of the survey. We were trying to keep it pretty simple to have a better chance of getting people to respond. We didn't collect any information. We didn't ask what street, et cetera, but Ladera is pretty small, so it probably was not that likely to make much difference.
Can
So
I ask what percentage of homeowners responded?
yeah, let's see. I got,
You have like
Six.
400 homes.
yeah, we
right?
have like low 500 homes, 535, I think. I got about 6 or 7% response rate, but also, we didn't really publicize this huge. We didn't put this in any sort of print mailing. We didn't put it on a website, and we don't really, I mean, we have a website, but I don't think it's very popular. We have a neighborhood email list, but the signal to low noise ratio is pretty low on it, so a lot of people ignore it. So it's not a great response rate, but also we didn't try super hard.
And that was over what period of time?
It was over, I don't know, like a week or two, like over New Year's. So
Oh.
like the timing wasn't great. We were just trying to get like something to have
Yeah.
some information to respond to the fire marshal. And with the data we got might not have been statistically significant for the community, but it was still interesting that there were things that we found that we didn't think that we hadn't considered before.
The thing is, because we're now, if they like this for the housing element, post-implementation strategy, the town will kind of help us to advertise this. So maybe we'll get some response. Okay, so thank you for all your input. I'm going to contact you guys for beta testing. Do you feel comfortable? I will go and correct these things and send it to Sharif, and maybe even send it to the beta testers early, because I don't think the town's gonna test it that much. I think he's just gonna look at it and say yes.
I mean, wait, can I?
Yes, Daniel.
Just one other thing. I'm in Ladera. I'm not technically in Portola Valley. We're in the same zip code. We
Yeah,
share
but you've
a lot of.
attended these meetings. You're now my tech support. I'm gonna send this to you for you to, well, maybe,
But-
okay, maybe I'll.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. My point was more like, I think insurance companies are going to look geographically probably more than municipality wise. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm totally taking a wild guess. But where I'm going with this is, do you want to include some way of reaching out to the unincorporated areas in the Portola Valley sphere of influence, like Los Trancos as well as Ladera? Or is there like rules saying, no, it has to be within Portola Valley boundaries, so you can't do that?
If the town manager wants me to, but I think because we're dealing with a housing element question, I think I could ask for the zip code.
We're all the same zip code.
I can throw it in the email and ask him if he wants us to do it, or, you can just, yeah, I don't know how I would even get the word out to Ladera to do it, because you guys don't get the PD newsletters, or I can't send you a mailer.
Okay, something
Yeah.
to consider from
Yeah.
getting more data on insurance.
Anything else? Okay, so you guys are okay? I'm just gonna move on this.
I'm all for it.
All right, let's move on, because we don't need to vote on it till next month. Okay, so so we're up to 5A, Conservation Committee update.
So the main thing to report on is the meeting that we had with Kim and the feedback that we provided her. And since I shouldn't discuss the feedback in detail, I'll just summarize a few things. One is, we gave her multiple stages of feedback because the document was evolving, but what we actually met with her about was the most recent version. And she was really receptive to all of our suggestions. The second update is that we've talked in the past about whether or not to suggest to the town manager that he request a voluntary inspection or pre-inspection or whatever we want to call it of the old schoolhouse. And so I did write to him about that, and I heard back that they received my request, and Kim is going to follow up on that. So Kim is very enthused about it. She also said that there is a church in town that has asked to do something very similar and she thinks it would be really useful. And then the last thing is one of the, as Kim mentioned, she is interested in getting pictures of houses that sort of demonstrate the different zones. And so one of the things that conservation is doing is we're looking through some of the backyard habitat awards that we've approved and going to those people to see, you know, maybe their houses would really nicely demonstrate how to do both habitat protection and fuel reduction.
Any questions from the committee or from attendees? Okay, mitigation subcommittee update.
Oh, okay. So, Dee and I had the Firewise table on May 2nd out here at the farmer's market. And I think we talked to 20 or 30 people. Patty Dews, Joyce Sheffrin, and Dudley Carlson all helped out. Chip Swan showed up. So we had a good time. And it's really interesting how you meet people in person and then people say, oh, I only know you through the forum or through Zoom or something. So, and it's really good when you actually meet people in person and talk to them. And then like Kim and Marshall Hurd both showed up and Marshall brought us stuff to hand out, like go bags. And then Kim just stood around and talked with us, or if people came up with questions about the ordinance. And that's where Kim told me that, oh, we're gonna do this evacuation next May, and she had presented that to the EPC. So I just, I learned that, yeah, it really pays to go talk to people in person, and even the people you're working with on the committee or the fire marshal. It's really beneficial to do something like that. So Dee and I were pretty happy and we thought we would try to do this on a quarterly basis. But, right now Dee's having all these, she's back in South Carolina because of her sister. And her sister's really sick and her sister's also their mother's primary caregiver. So
Right.
she might end up having
Yeah.
to go back and forth a lot. So I don't know how much further we're going to get this summer, given her situation. And I was, really looking forward to having her lead all this stuff. So that's my report.
Okay, any questions? From attendees? Okay. Finance and Insurance Subcommittee. I attended the workshop for the new insurance regulation. Oh gosh, I think it was more than 3 weeks ago. And so this is the regulation that would allow insurance companies a shorter time frame to get premium increases approved, and also would allow them to do the catastrophic modeling. So currently, they only can use historical data to justify a premium increase, and they can't use climate change or potential fire danger. And what was interesting about the workshop is 2 years ago, when I attended the one where they did a real change in California insurance regulations, where insurance companies were required to do all these kind of things like inspections, and it went on for 4 hours. Cal Fire was there, a lot of passionate conversations. Cal Fire was against the regulations. They ignored everything and they passed the regulation. That was 2 years ago. But this workshop, it ended in less than an hour. Or I think it was like an hour. Were you on the call? It was very,
I don't know if I went to
well,
the one.
very,
you
it
went
was
to.
very quiet. There were a couple of people that said the insurance company shouldn't be allowed to raise the premiums this quickly. But for the most part, the big comments were, this is not happening soon enough. That the way that this is going, you're not going to get this passed until December. Allstate, a representative from the company Allstate was there and basically said, if you pass this regulations, we'll open up insurance policies immediately. Boom. We love this regulation. So I just read an article, so I didn't think anything of it, and I just read an article 2 days ago that Newsom and the insurance commissioner Laura have decided to fast track this.
Oh, really?
Yes, and they are hoping that they are going to, because they basically have acknowledged that we're in a crisis.
Yeah.
And that they're hoping that the premium increases could start actually in July. And I know that's bad news, but because it's premium increases, but the good news is it may mean that we at least have insurance options.
Yeah.
And that is my status. Any questions? The committee or the attendee? No. Okay. So agenda for next month, it sounds to me like with this insurance tracking form and with the guidelines, we're not going to have much else on the agenda for next month. Certainly, we can't do a workshop until this is all put to bed, right? Do you agree? So that's what the agenda for next month will be.
Oh, I thought, well, if she gives us the guidelines, then we could discuss them as a
Right.
committee, right? That's
Right,
what we're
so
gonna
next,
do.
next month will be discussing the guidelines and we'll also give status on
Oh.
whether or not the town manager has approved the survey. If he asks for changes, I may send a link out to you. Okay, so quorum check, we're gonna be here next month? Okay, great. So, do I have a motion to adjourn?
You can move.
I move that we adjourn.
Okay,
I second.
okay, vote
We
on
already
it.
wrote that down.
Yes, we all voted to adjourn. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Bye. Okay, great. Boy, that was a good catch by Danny. I wish we could include Ladera, but honestly,